Good afternoon. Isn't it a beautiful day for a book festival? It's like gorgeous. So thank you all for coming. I think you're really going to enjoy this next session. So let me introduce myself. I'm Kelly Caudill. I'm one of the stage captains for this stage here at First Baptist Church. I have just a few brief announcements before our program begins. There will be a Q&A at the conclusion of this session, and microphone is located right here in the center, okay? So as you listen to our speakers today, think of one concise question that you would like to ask, please, and avoid making any long introductory remarks. Give other people an opportunity to ask questions too, so we'd really appreciate that. Books are available for purchase, you may have noticed, as this is a book festival. Eagle Eye Books is our bookseller, and they are located right in front of the church, okay? I'd like to also let you know that a portion of every purchase that you make from the independent booksellers here at the book festival goes to support the festival, okay? So we and they will all appreciate your support in that way. And as you probably know, Decatur Book Festival is a nonprofit, and it depends on sponsors and donations to bring great authors, such as the ones we've got here today, to Decatur each year. Please consider a tax-deductible donation to support the festival by going to the festival website at www.decaturbookfestival.com. And one more item, please turn off anything that has a ring or a buzz or anything that might distract your neighbor or our panels. So I would like to tell you who we have here with us today. First of all, we have the moderator, Preet Singh. Preet is the events coordinator at Eagle Eye Bookshop. She's also the co-founder and organizer of Love Y'all Book Fest, and it's the first romance book festival organized by independent booksellers. Pretty cool. And then we have, on the end here, we have N.E. Davenport. As you know, she is the science fiction fantasy author of The Blood Trials and its sequel, The Blood Gift. She's an advocate for diverse perspectives and protagonists in literature. And in the middle, we have Kate Dramis. And as you know, she is a professional writer. She owns 23 North & Company, a boutique copywriting, consulting, and coaching agency that helps business owners increase their exposure online. Let's again give a warm welcome to our panel and take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are in for a treat. Kate, as you know, is in the middle, and Nia is on the end. And we are going to start with what is commonly known as an elevator pitch. So it's a very brief summary of your book, followed by microtropes. I think we'll do the elevator pitch first.
Okay, Kate is looking at me because I just had a very unhinged one for Books, Gowns, and Crowns last weekend.
I'm just like,
and I'm going
to
try to modify this because we have little ears in the audience, and it is a romantasy. So,
is it because we're in a church?
Well, yes, that too. I was like, who put me on a romantasy panel in a church? Like, did you know what you were doing when you did that? I have no idea. So I'm going to modify a little bit and simmer it down. But my newest book coming out, it releases October 28th. It is Our Vicious Oaths. It is an enemies to lovers dark romantasy with Faye. Kadisha, the main character, is a warrior princess who just wants to be the heir to her kingdom, but since she's a girl, her father is very sexist and misogynistic, and he won't hand her the reins as heir. Instead, he wants to marry her off in a political marriage to a allied king who is notorious for murdering his wives when he's tired of them, and she is like, nah, I do not want this. So she has a dalliance with a handsome stranger the night before her wedding, and when she doesn't know the stranger is in town because he has been engaged in kind of like a decades-long feud with her court and her betrothed court, and he's there to sow literal carnage and chaos. So he pops up at her wedding the next day after this dalliance, and he uses it to orchestrate the slaughter of her court and her betrothed's court. And he has points. Her court slaughtered his court a decade ago, killed his parents. Now he's a grown man with a throne and a crown, and he's like, I'm coming for everybody, and you know my revenge. So he has like bullet points for why he's morally pitch black at this point. Anyways, her betrothed gets away, and he proposes a bargain. If she comes back with him to his court and pretends like she is his kidnapped war prize, they're going to lure her betrothed out of hiding so they can take his head. And she's like, cool, because he is an a-hole and I want him dead. He kills his wives. He was going to kill her too when he grew tired of her. But she's like, also you, new rival king, you are an a-hole too, because you just orchestrated the slaughter of my court, so I want you dead. So her plan is to use him to kill her betrothed and get out of this political marriage, and then kill this new hot rival king too. But it's enemies to lovers, so there's like, I don't know how to nicely word this next part of my pitch. They cannot keep their hands off each other and develop actual feelings along the way, and then she has to figure out if she's going to go amid the political scheming and the intrigue. Once they take care of her betrothed that's threatening to conquer both of their lands, if she's going to kill this rival king that she's caught feelings for, or if she's going to like make him drop to his knees and bark for it and give her his throne and his crown, because she is a literal queen.
You guys, it is so good.
I can't. Like, you have to
she's
understand,
laughing 'cause
I saw the R-rated version of that like 5 days ago, and watching you try to make it PG-13 was the best moment of my life. Now I'm like, I don't know, I don't even know what did I write? Okay. I am the author of the Curse of Saints trilogy, the last book of which is The Curse of Gods, which just came out in August. It is done. I feel like I need to lead with that in every pitch, okay? It's done. You can binge it. And I say that because my readers have lovingly been giving me, I don't know how not to swear in church, stuff, for the fact that book 2 ends on a really like heart-wrenching cliffhanger. And so I have been getting lovingly harassed by my readers for the last year and some change. So now it's finished and you can binge it. And I don't apologize for what I did to you. Anyways, The Curse of Saints follows Aya. She is the queen's third in command and spy master. And she has been tasked with uncovering why dark magic has suddenly reappeared in her kingdom. And she's forced to work with her bitter enemy, Will, who is the queen's second in command and brutal enforcer. They hate each other. Like, when I say hate to love, I mean like, she's probably gonna kill him at any given moment. And I can't tell you why, because it's a massive spoiler. Anywho, as they are investigating this rise of dark magic, something horrible happens. I also can't tell you what that is, because it's a big spoiler. And Aya shows powers that haven't been seen in over 500 years. And so naturally, everyone's like, oh yes, you are the second saint. You have been prophesized to save the realm from the return of dark magic. And Aya's like, you are nuts. That can't be possible. But she gets sent away anyways to study this new magic, and Will is sent to be her protector, much to her chagrin, because she's like, 1, I don't need a protector, and 2, could it please be anyone but him? And as they are studying her magic, Aya's power starts presenting as dark magic. So she has to figure out, has she been sent to save the realm, or has everyone misunderstood the prophecy and the gods actually want her to destroy the entire world?
Also very, very good. Okay. Let's talk about the microtropes, like the very super specific things that make your books super special.
You get to go first.
I mean, so I'm a knife to throat girly. So like Aya and Will's very first interaction is him like putting a knife to her throat when she sneaks up on him, and he knows that she's there. Because obviously he has to know her by the sound of her footsteps, because duh. I also really like forced proximity. There's forced proximity in these books. There's also, I'm really into like reluctant chosen one. or I don't know, reluctant doesn't feel like strong enough a word, or like really, 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 really do not want to be the chosen one, because I'm the type of person who I was like, if I woke up one day and people were like, it's you're gonna save the world, I'd be like, what? Like, are you sure?
It'd be very much a no thank you.
Right, I don't have enough training for that. And so when I was writing this book, it was definitely like reluctant, chosen one. Hate to love is another big one. I also really like a dancing to prove a point, but then our bodies start getting closer and feelings start happening, so that's in there. Yeah, I can't really think of any other microtropes. I can think of microtropes I like that I didn't put in my books, and that's really frustrating.
I too am a knife to throats, enemies to lovers, except in this world, Kadisha, she has fire magic and Malachi has shadow magic. So it's a variation on knife to throat. There's this part in the throne room, because they actually hate each other. They bitterly want to kill each other. She tries to literally melt his face off with a fireball, but he like ducks and she misses, and in turn he like chokes her out just a little bit, but like not enough to like actually hurt her, but to make a point like, I'm the king and you just tried to kill me and how dare you? And she's like, oh, I wish you would. Like, how dare you? I'm about to burn you alive. Take your hands off me right now. But also I'm very much, when this is going on, you can like feel the romantic tension. So that is definitely one of my microtropes, where they are in a battle, like locked in a battle, but they also just kind of want to kiss too. So that's in there. I'm a really huge fan of marriage of convenience, enforced proximity. There's only one bed trope is another one I love, but also I put a spin on it. I keep billing this, and again, we're in a church, so I don't even know that, I can't believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth. But I keep saying, instead of there's only one bed, there's only one throne, and yes, that means exactly what it sounds like it means, if you know the only one bed trope. Moving away from my romance tropes, I really like when there's a good ball scene where I can dress my main character up, where she is glamorous and she's in a dress that just makes everybody fall to their knees and stare in wonder. I think I got actually 3 of these in here. I got 3. I love a good challenge scene where there's that scene in Black Panther where M'Baku comes to challenge T'Challa for the throne, and it's very ornate, and there's a lot of pageantry. So I definitely got that scene in there too, and made Malachi and his cousin, who's a rival for the throne. And I managed to make them half naked, because it's a custom that they fight in like boxer wrestling type shorts. So I even threw that in there too.
I'm just like picturing you at your computer and you're like, it's tradition, no shirt.
It's tradition, as little clothes as possible while you're fighting. I love dragons, so Kadisha, one of her really, like, she's a warrior, but she's a warrior of a unit of women who, they are dragon warriors, so there is a dragon-like mythical creature that she is commanding. I like when those mythical creatures have snappy, like snarky attitudes, and Zaza, she just wants to eat and roast all of her enemies, including the male MC, and Kadisha's like, girl, we cannot torch everybody to a crisp, and the dragon is like, but why can't we? Let me eat them right now. So I really love that. I really love when shadow magic, shadow play. I love when we're playing with darkness and shadows. One of the reasons I wrote this book is because I don't think we get to see enough Black and brown characters in that quintessential shadow daddy, or just like those dark, brooding, deadly, heroic roles. I also don't think we get to see enough Black and brown women as the prophecy chosen princess who can either doom the realm or save the realm. I'm really into prophecies, so I shamelessly made Kadisha a chosen one, who is the chosen one from a prophecy. She is supposed to be the queen that will sit the high throne, and so will her children. And of course, because men will be men, they interpret that as the man she marries will be the one to take the high throne. And Kadisha's like, nah, but actually, what if I just turn that prophecy on his head and I sit in my own power as like the high queen?
That kind of leads into my next question, which was inspiration. And Nia, you're right. There are not a lot of stories that center Black and brown characters in positions of power. So I think you nailed it. And Kate, why don't you tell us more? And then Nia, if there's any more to the inspiration, please.
Yeah, so I love elemental magic. I'm a big Grisha-verse fan. I like anything Lee Bardugo touches turns to gold. And I also was like really big into Avatar: The Last Airbender growing up, watched the show, loved it. And I started thinking, okay, like what if we were to add mental and emotional powers on top of that? So Aya is a Percy. She has the power of persuasion. Will is a Sensinos. He has the ability to feel and manipulate people's emotions. And I was really drawn to like that sort of magic system and bringing in the emotional and mental aspect of it. A lot of the Curse of Saints is about holding up a mirror to like our worst parts and having to accept them about ourselves. It's a lot of emotional angst, and it's a lot of I read a review once and they're like, this was therapy. And I was like, you're welcome. So a lot of that was really inspiring to me. I also was really inspired by like elements of ancient Christianity and the feeling of struggling with your faith. So I grew up in the Christian church. I have often struggled with my faith, especially as a bisexual woman in the church. And so there's a lot within this book about, and within the whole series, about, you know, what does it mean to suddenly doubt something that you were told was 100%? And what does it mean to separate your identity from something that felt at once like home, but doesn't anymore? And Aya really struggles with that. You know, Aya goes from really believing in her gods and believing they have the best in mind for her to struggling for an entire trilogy and trying to figure out, okay, well, this isn't what I was taught. You know, I wasn't taught that this is what the gods had in mind for me, and I wasn't taught that this is the type of world they wanted, and how do you reconcile that? So that was a lot of the inspiration.
I'm a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender. I feel like that pops up in every fantasy space that I write in some way. I am also a really big fan of, most of them don't have magic, but historical dramas like the Borgias and the Tudors and the Medicis and the Red Queen, and Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. So I definitely wanted to write a sweeping political fantasy that had an immersive world, and you had these different political factions and aristocratic houses that and kings and queens of different faith, and I just put it in a Fae court package that were vying for power and status. I've always been a huge fan of Holly Black and Melissa Marr. I read the Wicked Lovely series, I think when I'm going to tell my age here, but I was like 17 when those books came out, and it may have been the first time I read a Fae story, and I was always like, I really want to write a Fae story. And when I started publishing, I published The Blood Trials first, which is a science fantasy. My agent at the time, it was kind of like, SJM has the market on lock. Publishing won't buy a Fae story from a debut writer. So it was something I had to put in my back pocket and write The Blood Trials first. And so I'm really grateful and thankful to be in a space where my voice can be heard in this within the canon of Fae stories that I've always wanted to play in and write in. I was going somewhere else with this. On top of this, I always wanted to write a fantasy that felt like a sweeping, relatable, epic fantasy, but that was also uniquely and unapologetically Black. I am from both Atlanta and Houston. I spent the first 10 years of my life in Houston. Me and my family moved to Atlanta when I was 10. I graduated high school here. Now I'm back in Texas. So I am the quintessential Black Southern girl. And I've always wanted to write a fantasy and thread roots and like elements of that culture into it, because I don't think we see it a lot in epic and secondary world fantasy. So I really worked hard just in how Malachi and Kadisha relate to the elders. He calls his auntie, and she has a head wrap in the morning, and he's like, she's not and my grandma was the type of woman, she was not leaving the house without a face full of makeup. Like, her face had to be beat. And so his auntie is definitely like that too, and just in the different foods that they have. I brought Southern comfort food like into this epic fantasy world when they're having meals or having these grand feasts. Like, those are their grand feasts. Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys about your characters, but I feel like we've learned a lot about them. How about we focus on the facets of your characters that maybe aren't the best, maybe aren't the worst?
Yeah, okay, so all of my characters are run the spectrum from morally gray to morally pitch black. I don't think I write. I don't think I've ever written, well, except in my YA. I write very fluffy cinnamon roll characters in my YA, but in my adult fantasies, none of my characters fully stand in the conventional morally right side. And it's because, I think it's my perspective as a black woman, I think there's value in rage and righteous fury. Sometimes it takes righteous fury and a drive to burn the world down when the world around you is bigoted and corrupt. And there's nothing wrong with that. So Khadijah is very much, she is a woman who doesn't like brutality for brutality's sake. She thinks that's horrendous. But if the powers that be are threatening her person or the people that she loves or her court, then she will resort to leaning into that righteous rage and go scorched earth. Malachi is a little bit different. He delights in cruelty for cruelty's sake, but he also has points. He's like, I watched a rival court slaughter my family when I was 8 years old, and so now he comes to a place where he is my villain-esque love interest, but they live in this world where vicious fae, who are as vicious or they are deadly, are constantly trying to snatch power from each other by incredibly brutal plots. And so he's coming from a place, I must be the monster of all monsters, and this is my path to protect my people. If you're an original fan or the Vampire Diaries, he is talking about inspiration. He is very much my Klaus Michelson, who will gleefully go scorched earth if you threaten his him and his, yeah.
I always tell people that you can judge my mental health based on whether or not I'm rewatching The Vampire Diaries.
Fair,
and I need everyone to know I am on season 5. So, but
very fair.
I love that inspiration. So very similarly, all of my characters are some shade of morally gray, some more than others. I think it was interesting, when I first wrote The Curse of Saints, it was actually all first person from Aya's point of view. And I got halfway through and I was like, I cannot sit in your head any longer. I must step back. And I ended up writing it in third person, revolving point of view, which added so much to the story and then also gave me a little bit of a respite from Aya's brain. And one of the things that I found really difficult in writing Aya is I was really interested in this dynamic in Romantasy that I feel like I see a lot, where you have this really strong female main character who emotes very openly, and then you have the brooding male main character who does not do emotion. And I was like, okay, but what if we turn this on its head? And we have Aya, who is a Percy, and she's a master manipulator, and she hates emotion. She does not want, except for anger. Anger is her go-to emotion. And then we have Will, who is a Sensinos, and all he does all the time is feel emotion. And he has to put a guard up to not feel emotion all the time. And even that doesn't work because his shield is broken. And so he's constantly feeling people's states. And so it was interesting writing Aya because I am a very, very emotional person. I emote very freely. The one emotion that I have had to go through therapy to get in touch with is my anger. And so writing a character who is so in touch with her anger but nothing else was very difficult. It was a great experience, but there was half of the book where I was like, can you just talk it out? I don't know, I feel like you need a good cry. I think the thing that I have enjoyed most about these characters is every character makes bad decisions at some point, and I think that's reality, right? I don't know anyone who has a track record of making all perfect decisions, and I think that's what I wanted in this story. Is I think in Romantasy and fantasy, it can be a challenge to feel like you can easily insert yourself into the world because it's one step removed, and I think that has its benefits, but at the same time, I wanted people to feel and I feel really great fantasy feels like you feel like you can run into the main character on the street. That's how real they are to you. And I think that exploring those maybe not great parts of our humanity on an individual level is part of what brings that to life.
I really love how you guys have pointed out, both of you have very strong female characters and the relationship between their powers and their views and taking control, and then also pointing out the difference between that one step removed, also being morally gray, like nothing, like nobody's ever perfect. That's a great segue into the world building. So, because all characters are results of their environment. So let's talk about that. What comes first in the world for you? Is it like the characters? Is it the magic? How do you piece this together?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I think for me, they kind of come at the same time. I'm character first always. Like if I don't have a character, I need a character and I need a scene. If I don't have that, I don't have a book. And so usually I'll just like kind of let an idea sit, and then I'll have a scene, and I'm like, oh, it's time. And I'll sit and write some of that. And some of the world comes through in that. Like I knew that Aya had the power of persuasion. I knew that Will had the power of, emotional manipulation and sensing. I didn't know much beyond that. I just knew that was crucial in their dynamic. In terms of building out the setting, for me, it was very much a reflection of the character. So Aya and Will are from the Kingdom of Tala. They live in Dunedin, which is the capital. It's mountainous. It's cold all the time. It's very like a sharp, gray type of visual environment. And then, when Aya's forced to go study her power, she goes to the Kingdom of Trahir, which is basically like the French Riviera. It's very warm, it's very bright. Aiden, the crown prince, is very warm, he's very friendly, and Aya is overwhelmed. Like, she has sensory overload, right? She's like, it's too bright, it's too happy. Like, what? I don't understand what's going on. And she feels like this overwhelmed with the heat. And I think that, to me, had to come later because I needed to understand the characters first before I could build that part of the world.
I'm similar. Like some of them come at the same time, but then building out is what comes later. So with Our Vicious Oaths, I knew that I wanted it to be enemies to lovers. I knew that I wanted it to be set among fake courts, and I knew I wanted it to be. If you've ever read Nalini Singh's Guild Hunter series, I think we yelled about this way back in 2014 at Nola's Story, and I think it's how we first connected. She creates a fantastic world where these immortals, who are very deadly and very brutal, they play these very lethal games of power back and forth with each other that has cataclysmic consequences. And so I wanted to, that's an inspiration. I wanted to set up a world. And from there, it was figuring out, okay, if it's enemies to lovers, they must be rivals. If they're rivals, they must be from feuding fake courts. And then carving out, this is what Kadisha's court looks like, and giving it a name, and this is her magic. And I lean on elemental magic, so I call it Aether magic, but she's able to basically tap into the raw essence of the world, and that manifests as a purple flame. And Malachi was the fact that I wanted to bring in the trope of a black shadow daddy, so I was like, his magic automatically became, he can wield shadows and darkness and form them into weapons. And there's a line that a reader pointed out that I really love, where his auntie tells him, darkness creates, but it can also destroy. And so he's constantly balancing that duality, being able to create catastrophic harm, but also he can heal with this darkness too. So being able to do very uplifting, positive things if he so chooses. So that was one of my inspirations. I also wanted the rest of the courts have been united in a years-long alliance against Malachi's court. It's very much, they were the court that did not bow to a king who installed himself as the informal feudal lord and collected all of these vassal courts. And so the rest of this alliance, over the centuries, they've been trying to force Malachi's court to kneel, which is how his parents got murdered. And they've firmly, staunchly been like, we are fiercely independent and we're not giving up our autonomy. Kadisha's court did. Her father's did. So it's also her journey, getting away from the man she's betrothed to, who has forced her in her court into this very subservient position. So one of the themes is just that when you give up your power to someone who doesn't have your best interest in mind, you put yourself on this very perpetual harmful leash, and then you have to figure out how to wrestle back that power, because a tyrant is a tyrant. So they're going to be selfish and self-serving, and they can woo you with flowery, pretty words and promises, or, oh, if you kneel to me, I can give you safety, or it can be better. But at the end of the day, if one set of people allow themselves to be oppressed, then that opens the doorway for everybody to be oppressed. And that's one of the major themes that I wanted to make sure I carried through our Vicious Elves. I talk a lot about how it's a romantasy, but it's also a book I really wanted to make the fantasy and real life conversations I was having with the book exist side by side with the fun, like, romance plot too.
I think that's my favorite thing about fantasy and romantasy is that you have this incredible story, but that you can also bring in real life, and you can explore it in a way that feels safe and exciting. It's a lot of fun. Let's move on to writing. Everybody comes to it differently. We talked about world building, let's talk about plotting. Kate, you start with the scene. Do you plot all the way through? Do you do it scene by scene?
It changes every book, but I watched, V.E. Schwab did a talk on the Story Corps method as part of Y'all Fest in 2020 when it was virtual. It is still on YouTube, so you can go watch it, and it is the best 45 minutes you will ever spend. And I remember watching that and being like, my whole life has changed. And one of the things that they talk about is basically it's like the story corpse, right? You put your plot into a corpse, and you basically start with bones, which are your main plot points, and that is how I now approach plotting. I always start with bones. You can tell how bad my writer's block is by how detailed my outline is. So, when I was writing The Curse of Gods, I had a 6 or 7 page outline. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I just couldn't get it out of my head and onto the page in a way that I was like, oh, this is a book. This is not just a plot document. And I remember telling my agent, I was like, what happens if we just leak the document? And she was like, you can't do that. And I was like, you know what, you're right. It really depends on where I'm at in my creative process and what's going on in my brain, which any given day is something different. But I always start with a scene, and then I start with my 10 bones, and I'm like, this is the story arc, this is the general thing I'm trying to tell. And then I kind of vibe write for a while after that, so I can get excited about it, and then I'll go back and make a more comprehensive corpse with my story, add in those subplots and all of that. But yeah, I always say I am a plotter, but I need to leave room for magic, because if I know everything, as I learned with The Curse of Gods, then I'm like, okay, I'm done. What next?
I'm halfway between a plotter and a pantser. I call them tentpole events, but they sound like the same thing. So I know the inciting incident, I know the conflict, I know the rising action, I know the climax, and then I know the resolution. And so once I lay those tentpole events down, I don't worry about what else is going to happen in between, because that's where I leave the pantsing to, but I have my framework or my skeleton, and then I will go to deeply fleshing out my characters, knowing if she's a warrior, if she's a princess, if she's a general, if she's a healer, if she's a scholar, and then doing that same thing for my secondary characters and what their wants, motivations, and needs are, how they relate to each other, the tensions and conflicts and alliances or feuds that will exist between my main characters and the secondary characters. I do the same thing I always carve out a world that has different empires or different courts or different natures. So I do the same thing for my different territories. Who's allied, who's in a feud, what their sordid hundreds of years long history is, how that spilled over into your present conflict. I don't always write romantasies, but I always write, even if I don't, I'm writing a fantasy with a romance too. So I will also go through, and after I have my tentpole events for my fantasy plot, I will go through and do a romance beat sheet to where I'm like, this is the meet cute or the meet hate, and then this is where the tension between them is building, but then this is the thing that's keeping them apart. This is the moment where they recognize their feelings for each other. This is the grand declaration of love. This is where they get over whatever the shenanigans are, and they finally are locked in as a unit. And then I will go and marry that romance beat sheet in my tentpole events, because I always like for my fantasy and my romance to sit 50-50 when I am writing romantasy. But as far as how we get from the beginning of the book to like the first plot point, and then the rising action, and then the climax. I have no idea about like the nitty gritty, like chapter by chapter, scene by scene things that occur. I just stare at a blank page until it's like a moving picture or like a moving image comes to mind. Once the cinematic version starts to unfold in my head of that chapter 1, it's when I know I've got a book and I'm cooking and I can start writing. And so I start writing that chapter 1, and then I get to the end, and then from there it's kind of the creative juices are flowing, and I will pause and wait for that cinematic scene to hit me for what's chapter 2 and chapter 3, all the way up till that next tentpole event, and then draw it out like that.
The romance beat sheet changed my life.
Yes, it changed mine too.
So in the arc of The Curse of Saints, I felt like because of the fantasy elements, and I don't know if you feel the same, but like they kind of help move it along because they're so tied together. And then I wrote a contemporary romance, and I did my 10 tentpole things, and one of the plot points just said, they fall in love. And I was looking at it later, and I was like, okay, but how? What? And then I found the romance beat sheet, and I was like, oh, there's a formula here.
So when it comes to writing, because it's pretty complicated, there's lots of moving parts, so what do you find is the easiest to write? Or what part of the process is easiest, and what part of the process is most difficult?
So I don't know if one is easier or more difficult, but drafting is, I love drafting. Like, I will kick my feet and giggle, and it brings me pure joy. And it's the part that's work that also feels like play. When I get my edit letter from my editor, that is a part where it'll land in my inbox, and I will have extreme ostrich syndrome where I don't even open it up for a solid week. I'm like, I know it's there. I know I have a deadline. I don't care about any of that. I'm not even looking at this letter because I have to get over my own anxiety and staring down the mouth of intimidation. Like, I have to edit this book in this compressed amount of time. So I ignore. I go into delusional space and I ignore it. And then after a week, I'm like, okay, this deadline is ticking down. I've lost the whole week. I should probably open this edit letter up. So then I finally open the edit letter. I read it. I always go through these stages of grief where I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. No. And then I sit with myself and I'm like, girl, you're tripping. Get over yourself. Your editor is actually very brilliant. And they do know what they're talking about. And I admittedly deliver very crappy first drafts, and I know this about myself. So then once I get over that initial that aversion to doing the work, I go back to the edit letter again, and then at this point I'm vibing with it. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant, and this is brilliant, and yes, we need to do this, and yes, we need to change that, and yes, we need to tweak this. There are some things, I've learned the power of steading, which means saying, I respect your creative vision, but I like my creative vision more in this specific instance, and here's why. And there are some times that I will do that. For example, Malachi he was meant to be a morally gray character, and I had an edit note that was like, maybe he's a little too unhinged. And that's when I stead it back, because we don't, and I was like, is this because he's black? Because we don't get this about the Darkling. We don't get this about Klaus Michelson. There are tons of morally gray white MMCs that literally go scorched earth, like Klaus in The Darkling. And we don't get these letters about maybe he's too much. So that was when I studied. I was like, no, my readers will I know my readers, they will devour him. He is perfect the way he is. We are going to stay. So then I tick off all the yes I love, here are the small things I'm gonna state, and here's my rationale, just so me and my editor are on the same page about why we are sticking with my vision in this thing and not going with yours. And then once I've done that work, I will actually write out a revision plan if I need to do major structural revisions. And then once I have my roadmap, I just dive in and go just beginning to end and edit the thing through. The one drawback of that, when I get to the end, I feel like I lose steam. By the time I get to Act 3, the final chapters, I'm like, girl, I don't care. I don't know. So
when you read it 50 times,
yeah,
you're
I'm
okay.
I actually don't care now. So I've learned to start maybe working from the end when I'm diving into edit. So my endings remain strong, and then there's always a couple of rounds, and so then for the next round, which if I started at the end, I'll start from the beginning. If I started at the beginning, I'll start from the end. So each of those chunks have gotten my full energy and enthusiasm at least once.
So I've learned recently that I like drafting when I am drafting something that we are going to go on submission with. If I'm drafting something I've already sold, I'm like, okay, I know, like on to the, like I want the new shiny idea. So I've really had to like work with my ADHD to be like, no, I know you've been thinking about this for 3 years, but you signed a contract and you have to finish it. I am a very clean drafter. I turn in very clean drafts. So I like editing because there's usually not a ton that needs to happen there. But I will say, I also spiral. When I get my edit letter, I don't wait a week. That's bold. But that's amazing. Like that, teach me your self-control. I immediately read it, and then I give myself 24 hours to just like completely crash out. And what I do in that time is I write a full rebuttal, right? So I'm like, no, wrong, no. You completely missed the entire point of the book. And then I like wake up the next day and I'm like, wow, who was that? That was wild. And then I'm like, okay, let me actually get into this. And then I pick I pick what I call like, these are the hills I will die on. And they're like usually very specific things that I'm like one in The Odds of You. Theo is mourning, I'm not even talking about a book that I have out yet. It's my book that comes out in January, but Theo is mourning, his brother and mom had passed away like 7 years prior in a car accident. And he's struggling with his grief still 7 years later, and he is on the beach talking to Sage, and he laughs at something she says, and his laugh is described as is wet because he's crying. And for some reason, every edit I got, they wanted to remove that his laugh was wet, but Sage had a wet laugh at another point in time, and it never bothered them that Sage had a wet laugh. And so I wrote this, it was such a weird hill to die on, but I was like, why do you not want a man to cry? And I think this is toxic. And they were like, never mind, keep it. And I was like, so I will pick my hills, and I'm very competitive, so I think I kind of like the tit for tat, that I get to have with my editor. And bless my editors, they're brilliant, and they also, they are fierce. And so sometimes they're like, you need to sit down. And I'm like, respectfully, yes, sorry. But yeah, so I pick my hills to die on. And I've started, if there's a line I really like that I don't want to remove, I will share it on social media with my readers. Oh, I'm not kidding.
That is diabolical.
I do. I share all my stuff early. This is I cannot keep a publishing secret to save my life. And my teams just know this. Anytime they're like, can you keep this news? My agent's like, she can't. And so I will share my favorite lines because there is a line in The Curse of Saints, and it's No Matter How Far the Fall, and it has actually become a rallying cry for my readers to this series. And I had shared it very early on before I ever had a publisher. And my editor came in and wanted me to cut it because she didn't get it. And people now have it tattooed, so I was right. But I remember being like, actually, I've shared it on social media, and here are the posts, and here are the thousands of people who have said they like it. And so she backed down, and now I'm like, wait, I have a trick. So now I do it. If I really have one, I'm like, no, my readers. Think of my readers.
I love that. I have a Romantasy Smash or Pass that we're going to do really quickly. We have about 15 minutes left, and I definitely want to open up the floor to questions because I feel like you guys will have some really good ones. And I didn't make it all the way through my list, so you guys will make it really good. Okay. This is Smash or Pass Romantasy Edition. Enemies to lovers or fated mates?
I'm smashing enemies to lovers.
I'm white shoes if this is the Romantasy edition. Both.
So both are smash?
Yes.
Oh, this is pick one. You have to pick one.
Okay, fine. If I must pick one, enemies to lovers.
Kate?
Enemies to lovers.
All right. Only one bed or only one horse? And the horse can be dragon, throne, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I just feel like there's so much more space in a bed. But wait, that might actually be a bad thing.
Wait, so right now my imagination is turning. But I do love a really good bed, especially when one character is like, I want you in my bed. It's very possessive and very growly and very hot, so we're gonna go with bed.
I'm gonna go with bed too. You can break a bed, you can't break a horse. Or you shouldn't. Sorry.
I think you just broke me. Fae or demigods?
Ooh. Oh, I have to go demigods.
I have to go Faye because I wrote a Faye book.
Standalones or series?
I like series. My contemporary romance is a standalone, and I remember getting halfway through and I was like, I don't know that I can do this.
I'm not saying this because my next book is a standalone. I genuinely really like a juicy standalone where I can get the story wrapped up within one read. But then the drawback is I'm crying because I want more.
Fanfic, my friend, fanfic.
Neatly wrapped or cliffhangers?
I freaking love a cliffhanger.
I despise cliffhangers. Like, despise them.
Okay, but what if, hear me out, what if it ends up neatly wrapped?
I don't care. Like, I understand their function as a writer from a craft point. They're brilliant because they make readers buy the next book. But as a reader, I want to hurl books at a wall that have a cliffhanger.
I consider that the highest praise. When someone's like, I threw your book at the wall, I'm like, thank you.
Funny or tearjerker?
Oh. I like a tearjerker.
I like a funny book. Like, when there's heart and humor at the same time, it gets me, yeah.
Urban fantasy or high fantasy?
This is hard. High fantasy.
High fantasy.
Historical fantasy or contemporary fantasy?
Is it like historical is it like epic fantasy that feels historical or actual historical fantasy?
Epic fantasy that feels historical.
Epic
that
fantasy
one,
that feels
yeah.
historical.
Okay. Dragons or unicorns?
Dragons.
Dragons, no contest.
Secret royals or secret superpower?
I love a good juicy secret royal.
I love a secret royal too. Yeah.
Dystopian or fantasy?
Oh, come on, that's so mean. What if it's fantasy dystopian?
Dystopian with magic.
Dystopian with magic.
That is up to your purview. But for this sake, you have to pick one or the other.
Why choose, Preet? Why choose?
If I can use that, you can use that.
All right, I won't make you choose on that last one. Before we turn it over to the audience Q&A, tell us what's coming up next.
Oh, okay, so for me, I kind of already have. Our Vicious Oaths is out October 28th. It's the Enemies to Lovers, Dark Romantasy with Faye.
My next book is The Odds of You. It is my contemporary romance debut, and it comes out in January.
January 6th.
January 6th.
January 6th. Okay. If you have not read or pre-ordered their books, highly recommend you do so. They are amazing. I do think Nia will hit the New York Times, if not with Our Vicious Oaths, with hopefully the next romantasy that she writes. It is the best Fae romance I have read all year. And I have read 100 plus
Also,
books.
I will be back in town on November 19th at Brave and Kind
Yes.
for the release for Our Vicious Oath. So if you are in town,
Yes.
grab tickets and stop by.
And also, Nia will be on a panel at
1:45, a
For-
YA panel, talking
yes.
about my swoony cinnamon roll YA.
Yes, and that venue is at the Decatur Public Library, so do not miss that panel. Okay, audience Q&A. Who's got questions? I
Come
see a
on.
hand. Please, come up to the mic.
So you mentioned bringing in real life aspects into this fantasy realm. Do you find that a lot of times there's actually more of real life than that one topic that you intended to like expand upon?
Yeah, I feel like the best fantasy and sci-fi are books that bring a wealth of real life experiences and like perspectives and events, and they just drop that into a fantasy space. So everything from my characters to how they relate to each other, to how they view the world, to the politics, to the customs, they all have real life inspirations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm wondering, so you talked about some of the inspiration for these books that you have, but I'm wondering what's one piece, the most recent piece of media, be it books, movies, TV, that inspired you, and what is one recent piece of media that you consume just for yourself that you would recommend?
Ooh. Allie, you've made it so that I can fulfill my bingo card. So I try to talk about red, white, and royal blue on every single panel I'm on. And I didn't have a chance to do it today until this wonderful question, so thank you so much. Not recent media, but is what is informing my next contemporary romance, because I relate in so many ways to Alice Claremont Diaz, and I love looking at his bioawakening, and so my next book is a later in life bioawakening. So it's like, I picture it as like ACD's bioawakening, but let it take center stage and be like the whole book. And then in terms of what I've read recently or experienced recently that I love, we're not going to talk about me rewatching The Vampire Diaries. An Ocean Apart by Jill 2 comes out in October, so it's very soon, on the 14th, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is dystopian romance, and it is the best of both of those genres. It is so good. So I highly, highly, highly recommend.
I watched Sinners. I've watched it so many times. That's going to be my standard answer, I think, for now until like the end of time, because it was such a fantastic, brilliantly written and directed movie that blends so many genres, from horror to historical to vampire, fantastical things. It's just, I cannot yell about that movie enough. And it inspired me as a creative to continue to tell sweeping, immersive stories and like bend genres.
I just want to thank both of you for being here. My question is a little bit around characters, and how do you sort of craft maybe that backstory, or when you drop us readers into the books, like with I and Will, for instance, you sort of, in that first couple of chapters, you can understand like, okay, like they have a lot of tension going on here. How do you sort of go about maybe like crafting all of that backstory?
Yeah, I think I always start with backstory, and then I have to figure out how much backstory should I give and how much just lives in my notes app on the note that's called book shit. But it is very much, for me, I think, if you think about just people in general, right? Our past shape who we are, they shape our actions, they shape how we look at the world today. And I think so much of our experience is us either healing from our past, not healing from our past, building off of our past, et cetera. And so I always like to look at what are the emotional wounds of my characters and how did they get them, which is usually how I get that backstory.
I do the same thing. I start with pages of backstory and how that informs their wants and their motivations and their needs. And their wants and needs are not always the same. Sometimes what a character wants is not the thing that the character needs, and that can be in conflict, just like it's in conflict for us in real life a lot of the time. And so I have pages and pages of that, and like Kate said, I figure out what makes it onto the page and when. And I'm always aware of not info dumping and like making the reader ask the question first before I hand them the information. And that's like kind of like a quick hack when you need, because info dumping is a part of writing a book, so you're going to have to do it at some point, but it's just making the reader hunger for the information first, so then they're like excited to get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you're writing or plotting, do you prefer to handwrite it or type it or use an app?
This is a funny story, because high school me prefers to handwrite things and then to type things, and now adult me, this is for me personally because it varies. Different things work for different people, but it feels like double working myself personally when I handwrite and then go back to type. So I prefer to type things, but I have a best friend who's a writer and she does it the opposite. She has to handwrite to like get the thoughts out, but if I try to handwrite, I get major writer's block. It's like I've trained my brain, I cannot create unless I'm typing.
I handwrite when I'm stuck, so I'll like bring out a journal and I'll handwrite a scene because it just feels like not work, you know? So I'm like, oh, it can be bad, it's fine. But one of the things I really like to do, I feel the same way, like I'm working when I'm typing, I'm creating when I'm typing. But fun hack, put it into Comic Sans, and your brain is like, this isn't serious. And I'm not kidding. And I will get like huge word count days. And it's really embarrassing because I often co-write with friends and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, leave me to my process, okay? But yeah, so I like will do little hacks in my writing, but usually I'm typing.
Thank you.
We have 5 minutes left, you guys. Make it count.
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you for your answer about the info dump. That was like actually really clarifying on a lot of writing and storytelling. I know there's a lot of discussion about like preferences for point of views, like third person, first person. Do you guys have a favorite style to write in and read in if they're different, and why?
I actually don't. I just whatever. This is gonna sound wild, but I go off of vibes. So I go for vibes. So when I have a story, whatever point of view the very first like dialogue or like the very first line pops in, if it's third person, I roll with that. If it's first person, I roll with that. That is largely for adult. For YA, I do tend to strictly be first person just because I think it's a little bit more immediate and captivating for a younger audience. And so I use first person for YA.
I love third person, and I think that there's something, I feel like you can still achieve the closeness of first person with a very close third, and I really, really like that. In terms of reading, I don't really mind either way. Like, I like both of them. I did not realize that people had such strong opinions about this until I started getting early reviews for The Odds of You, and they were like, this was amazing, but I really had to get used to the third person. And I was like, what? Oh, I didn't know this was like a genre convention. So yeah, I really think it's like personal preference.
Thank you.
When you're writing a series, how much are you on the fan boards looking at other people's fan theories about what's going to happen next? And are you just giggling at them, or you're like, ooh, that's actually kind of nice?
I'm a fragile writer, so I 100% stay away from fan boards because then my feelings will be hurt, and then I'll have to crash out, and then I'll get canceled. So I stay away from any and all fan boards and reviews.
Oh yeah, I'm 100% the same way. Like, I have Goodreads blocked, NetGalley blocked, I have my name blocked. Like, I can't even see, like, you could be like, happy birthday, Kate, I will never see it. And so, I will say there was, and I try not to, if I'm like mid-series and still plotting, I don't want to know the theories. I love when readers come up to me and tell me the theory. Like, I'm like, come tell me the theory. But if I start a video and you're talking about my book, I don't know where it's gonna go. So I'm just like, no. But I did see someone once with a whiteboard, and that was really cool. Like, they were connecting characters, and I was like, this is cool. I can't watch it because I'm scared, but thanks for the dedication.
I will say I'll watch a video my readers have been very good about only tagging me in like really great gushing praise. So if you tag me, I will watch it because you're signaling to me you're not about to crush my soul.
Please don't ever tag authors in anything negative. Just don't do it. This will be our last question.
Ooh, I love the privilege. No pressure, no pressure. Okay, so I have the unique pleasure of already having read Arvesh's Oaths, and you should definitely go buy that book. So I've been reading and talking about this book for months, and so this question is for both of you, but specifically for Nia. In talking about this book as much as I have, I've realized how much it's something that people haven't had but have looked forward to. Like, I've been describing it essentially as Game of Thrones meets Black Fae. And every single person that I've talked to this book about has been like, I've never read a book like that. I've wanted to read that book for so long. So as a writer, how do you come to the decision that this is the book that I'm going to sit down and write? Like, this is the book that the world needs?
So this is a book that has been in my heart since 2016, even probably 2014, not in this rendition, but Malachi and Kadisha as characters. They were characters that were in my heart since 2014, and I stumbled through a story where I wasn't calling them Fae. I was trying to do that thing where publishing is over Fae, so I gave them a made-up name and tried to make it be different and provocative, and then readers like yourself and all the phenomenal readers of my first series, The Blood Trials, have poured in so much support and enthusiasm for me taking more tropes or stories that are considered conventional and just weaving in Black culture, like Black vampires and Black witches and Black fae. I've gotten such an outpouring of love and support and just energy behind it that it felt like the natural step, because I've always wanted to be they're fae but they're Black. So I was like, yo, I'm about to write Black fae, and I thought it was gonna be something I had to actually very fiercely sell to my publishers, but I played the my readers want this card. And so they couldn't say no because I was like, my readers want this. They are looking forward to this. They will, I promise you, they will go feral over this. And they was like, okay, we're on board.
Yeah. The readers want this card. It's such a powerful card. I got a lot of pushback about moving into contemporary romance. I know, shocking. But it was interesting because there was some hesitation, right? Because I had just debuted as a Romantasy author. The trilogy was doing really well, and they were like, your readers are just gonna want more Romantasy. And I said, hold my beer, and I started teasing the odds of you. And I'm very much a writer where if I have a story, like it overtakes me, and I can't not get it down. And so I think really the challenge for me isn't like choosing what story is next, it's figuring out how to get support from an industry that tends to be a little fickle. Yeah. And so my readers want this was the easiest way to go about it. So I started teasing it before I ever pitched it to any of my publishers, and it became my highest performing content and my highest search. So when people were searching my name, it was Kate Dramis, The Odds of You. It had outpaced The Curse of Saints. So for me, it was like a very clear, someone wants it. So I think that to me is more how I approach that. I have to write for me first, or else I'm never gonna keep writing. So I have to tell the story that's on my heart, and then I just hope that people get behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Please give Kate and Nia a huge round of applause. They will be signing the books outside. Please get your books ready. Go buy them. Nia's books are already autographed because she's going to run over to her other panel in a little bit. But we do not have these vicious oaths. We could not sell them with a $2,000 penalty for each book for selling it 3 weeks early. So pre-order it. And like Nia said, she will be back in town November 19th.
And I'll still be signing as long as I can, but I do have to run.
Yes. So please go get in line. We will see you out there. Oh, they have art prints too, so you definitely want to get in their lines.